Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Matt Murphy Show. Matt will be in later in the drive for Brian Wilson. I'm Cameron Smith. In the usual Wednesday spot, a little early, but I'll be here all day. We're going to have some fun. We're going to talk Project 2025. We're going to talk Republican Party platform. We've got all kinds of things to talk about. Oh, and there's this little issue of the President of the United States not being exactly there. It's a big problem. It's a big problem for Democrats. For Republicans, it's great. It can be a little bit of a trap. We're going to talk about that. Meanwhile, Trump's out there not calling Chris Christie a fat pig, which was quite exciting. And we've got Glenn Youngkin saying something. He enacted an executive order about technology in classrooms. He must have read my column over at the Tennessean about the subject. That's, hey, here's what we need to do in Tennessee. I see Jerry has been waiting from the Chris Hand show, so I never want to leave a caller hanging at the beginning of a show. So, Jerry, the Biden insanity is what you want to talk about. You mind talking about it with me?
Yes, sir. How you doing?
I'm doing great. What's going on?
I'm going to make you laugh by the end of this call, so just be ready.
All right.
Not just for Chris, but you as well, Cameron. I don't see why you guys are so doom and gloom or pessimistic about the way they spin him being mentally sane or fit to hold office. I mean, when they have the trials for treason, they're going to play these tapes of these speakers talking about his mental condition, and there's no way they can use insanity as a plea to get out of it because, you know, he's mentally competent. It's been proven. So there you go. So there's no escape for them when the day of reckoning comes for all the stuff that they're not talking about in the media that they should be and focusing on his mental condition.
Well, the day of reckoning is going to be in November. I can just tell you that right now. That's when that's going to happen is folks are saying, wait a minute, you've been lying to us. Now, for a lot of Republicans and conservatives, they haven't bought the lie. They've believed their own eyes and ears. They've watched Biden decline. But Democrats and even the media, their hand is being forced here. So they're having to concede this guy is not all there, and everybody can see it. And in November, the fact that you've got Democrats now talking about a potential landslide election, an election that was predicted to be quite close, is telling.
Right. Now, just do me one small favor.
Okay.
Don't let Sleepy Joe anywhere near the Glock store, number one. You don't want him in the firing lane next to you. Number two, maybe we can take him to Eurofix, and then it can help him with all the bibbity-bibbity.
You know, I don't know if Eurofix, Glock store, anybody else can help Biden with what ails him because he's just old. I mean, I hate to say it like that, but this is your capacity is you age. You, Jerry, me, everybody. It doesn't get better. It continues in one direction. And so I don't know what they think is going to get better. They keep talking as if this is just a blip on the radar and we'll move on from this. I'm going to read a little bit from Biden's letter to Congress and point out, I mean, they're just, it's la-la land that they're engaging. And I think I saw Biden insanity on your call, and I think you're right.
Yeah, well, like they say, a liar has to have a very good memory. And I think Joe's told so many lies in 48 years in politics that he just can't keep track of them anymore. And the age just compounds the problem and adds to it. But he wants to keep claiming he's fit for office and he's never felt better and he looks 40 years old and all the other narcissists, you know what, that's coming out of his mouth. Let him do it. It's going to work against him in the long run when it comes time for him to be held accountable for all the stuff with the laptop and the Ukraine, threats and extortion.
So Jerry,
all that
I got a real quick question for you. Do you think Joe Biden, at this point, is he actively lying, or does he now believe his own lies is true?
Both.
Okay.
Both. That's what a sociopath does. They lie to themselves into thinking that they are telling the truth, and that's how they justify it in their mind.
Yeah,
I don't even think it's conscious. I think it's subconscious.
I wish I could give him that much credit. I think that he's sort of said this stuff so many times that, and it's interesting. What is it? bottom up and middle out, that phrase they always use about the economy. And
speaking of laughing, before I forget, one thing, because I'm going to forget before you hang up on me.
Go ahead, Jerry.
Please get at least 4 soundbite samples of Matt Murphy's laugh for your producer, so that when you guys do all those, little things you throw in the soundbite, he has the funniest laugh in all of talk radio, and I've been listening all over the country my whole life. That man's laugh is off the chain funny.
Yeah, and it's a kind of psycho. I'm not gonna lie. It's a little.
It's great. It's
interesting.
Great, though.
I love the man.
All right, yeah, we're doing, brother.
Thank you, Jerry. I appreciate it. Jerry's right on the call, and actually, I'll let you guys know something kind of funny. So over at AL.com, let me back up a minute and tell y'all, I do this every show because I want you guys to know. I always hate this stuff when they talk about shadowy interest and things that are, you're a mouthpiece for this or that. I'm going to tell y'all straight up exactly who pays me and who I talk to and who I work for and all that stuff. So I'm over at the Tennessean. I'm on the editorial board. I'm a columnist. I get paid to write my opinion. They don't tell me what I can write. I send it in. They run it. It's great. I do that same thing for AL.com. That's Birmingham News, Huntsville Times, Mobile Press Register down in Alabama. I am in-house in a company in Franklin called Thanks that does business-to-business small gestures of appreciation. Helps you grow your business with gratitude, and I'm a partner in a media company. We made the Ballad of Davy Crockett that you can go rent and buy right now, and we wanted to change the culture because we think that if folks aren't challenging the culture, you're just complaining about it, you're part of the problem. And so I appreciate all of y'all that have followed that journey and done that. But I want you guys to know, every time I'm on the air, I take a couple minutes to explain what I do, where I do it, so you don't have to play this weird game. Is he giving me the spin? Because y'all get too much spin and it's garbage. Elaine in Mount Juliet wants to talk about Biden in the election, so I'm going to let her do that. Elaine, what are you thinking?
Well, I tell you, my favorite people right now are the Democrats.
Why is that?
Because so many of them are saying, if Biden's on the ticket, I just can't vote for Trump, so I just won't vote at all.
Yeah, some of them are saying that. They're just saying, I can't get there. I've actually seen, I don't know if y'all have seen this, but I saw on X a lot of the pro-life voters saying the same thing about Trump, saying, well, his stance on abortion, not pushing at the federal level for a federal abortion ban, is abandoning them, and they can't vote for Trump because he's squished out on pro-life. You have any thoughts on that?
No, I think what Trump did is absolutely what he should have done, or what the Supreme Court did, push it back to the states. I think the government right now has just got their nose and their fingers in too many pies.
Amen.
And the country doesn't run well when that occurs.
Yeah. I agree. And I actually agree with Trump on abortion policy. I think pushing it back to the states is the right answer. And then fight those battles at the state. If you want to roll back abortion in California, let's do that. But let's not try to do one-size-fits-all stuff from the federal government because, like you said, too many fingers and too many pies. I hate it. It's a problem. We got to fix it.
Yeah, and all those fingers are reaching for money. So, it just costs more and more and more. I mean, we've got to decrease the size of government for sure.
Yeah, well, I agree with you, Elaine. I appreciate the call. Thank you very much. And, Jason's over there on the Super Talk text line trying to start a fight, 615-737-9986. We have some regular listeners, and you guys know who you are. Y'all are wonderful. Lindsay, Larry, Jason, John, Mark Thomas, all you guys who listen regularly. We know each other now. We've known each other for a long time. So Jason wanted me to admit that I was a diehard Mitt Romney fan, that we have a love child together and all sorts of other things. I can not admit such a thing, much like Donald Trump can't imagine that an anonymous waitress would call Chris Christie a fat pig. He's not one, as if you listen to Trump, he's not one to comment on the physical appearance of people, except for all the times he has. But don't ignore that. He doesn't comment on that sort of things, and he doesn't believe in calling people names. So when that waitress told him that Chris Christie was a fat pig, he was definitely not going to say that Chris Christie was a fat pig. Just saying. Just saying.
All I have to say about that is that, if the man's not going to be original in his nicknames, then just stop doing it, because you gave fat pig to Rosie O'Donnell. You don't get to transfer it to Chris Christie.
Well, what's funny here, Bell, is I want whoever is running, the Trump campaign has been run excellently. And y'all who know me know I call balls and strikes. I'm not all in on Team Trump or any politician's team. I don't do that. I like to take it as I see it. But I'm telling you, the Trump campaign has been run in an amazing fashion this go round. They have done such a good job. And somebody, I don't know if they're tackling him, duct taping him or what, but he has been disciplined. He has not gone off script, but a couple times. And you can tell when he does, it gets weird. He starts talking about January 6th and he starts talking about other stuff that's off message. He talks, why in the world would you talk about Chris Christie at a rally? There's no point. But I'll tell you what, he's been right on with Biden's infirmity. Bell, did you see where he offered to spot Biden on 18 holes, 20 strokes, and bet $1 million?
No, but that doesn't surprise me one bit.
If you guys didn't hear this, it was great. He at one of these rallies said, you know what? I'll play Biden on 18 holes. I'll spot him 10 strokes on each side, and I will give $1 million to the charity of his choice if he beats me. I want you to think about that.
One of the things I've enjoyed watching is the Democrats trying to turn the fact that Trump has kind of been under the radar for like the last 2 weeks since the election, since the debate, turn that into a he's gone into hiding thing, when really what his people have done is said, stand back, let him take these slings and arrows, let him continue to pick at the wound he shot into his own foot, and then we'll come back out later after all this damage has been done to him.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is hilarious that the Biden camp is upset that Trump is running Biden's 2020 campaign right now. That Trump has said, you know what? We'll let Joe Biden be the headline right now. He can be the headline and I won't interrupt that. I won't. And
Which is a smart move.
And they are trying. The media, everybody is looking for any hook they possibly have. And voters, not the media, voters are like, yeah, but like he hasn't answered any questions about his competence and capacity. None. Can you answer those first before we talk about anything else? And Trump's folks have done great in the debate. He did a good job. He was focusing on inflation, immigration, foreign affairs. He mentioned Afghanistan. Sweet. Great. He didn't get weird, didn't start, just running off the cuff. It was stay in your lane. Remember that movie Hitch with Will Smith where, it said you dance right here. You just stay in your zone. You stay in your Trump's staying in the zone. He's saying, okay, I can riff all I want in these spaces. Let's stay there. And I think that's super smart. And there is nothing, and I mean nothing, that Biden can do about it because he can't answer the question. The obvious answer here is to take a basic capacity test, pass it, and then post the results and say, see, I'm fine. I'm just 81 or whatever, however old he is. And so I'm old. So sorry, I'm old, but I have capacity. They're not doing that. And then it's easy for everybody. I was listening to Chris Hand. I mean, Chris has pointed out that says all we need to know. If you refuse to take a test about competency, it's because you're afraid that it might come back negative. You don't want that. And so that's how you put this bad boy to bed is you say, hey, look, here's the full workup. Here's where I am. And take it or leave it. But they're not doing any of that. And I really want to get into, and I don't want to start it now, but when we come back from the break, he wrote this letter 2 days ago on July 8th to the Democrats because he knew they were meeting and he wanted to put this to bed. We're going to go through Joe Biden's letter because, well, the letter itself explains the problem because he didn't do it himself. He had a letter written that, hey, it's remarkably precise. It's just so full of crap that I feel like I just have to read parts of it to you. We got to take a break. I'm Cameron Smith. This is the Matt Murphy Show, and you're listening to Super Talk 99.7.
Well, it's been about 2 weeks since the debate, and there are still whispers among some Democrats as to whether President Biden should just get out of the presidential race. The city of Murfreesboro announcing that it wouldn't move forward with a planned amphitheater project. That's got some people upset. We'll get into those stories at 12:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Welcome back, folks. This is the Matt Murphy Show. I'm Cameron Smith, in for Matt, who will be on this afternoon. And speaking of the amphitheater in Murfreesboro, we're going to have a candidate for Murfreesboro City Council running at 2 o'clock. We're going to have the conversation with Matt Harriman and see what he has to say, and maybe he can tell us a little bit about what's going on in the borough. I actually judge communities in this area by their youth football programs. And by that measure, the Blackman Blaze over in Murfreesboro, that's a pretty serious program. They got some great kids out there. So Murfreesboro's out on my radar. It's growing. It is got all kinds of stuff happening there. I had dinner with a friend who lives in Murfreesboro the other day, talking to me about all the stuff that's happening there. But the one thing that he said was that Murfreesboro's got to bring its A game when it comes to restaurants. That there's not many, really nice, fancy places to eat out there. So y'all got to tell me if I'm wrong. But
in Murfreesboro?
In Murfreesboro. That's what I'm hearing.
Chili's?
Yeah, I know. I mean, they're upgrading out there in Murfreesboro. And, that ain't going to cut it anymore, Bell.
And, man, they got like 4 or 5 toots.
Yeah.
In Murfreesboro. I live there. And, that comment, though, Cameron, is fairly accurate.
Yeah.
I mean, you got a Firebird's Grill that's nice, and some others there along Medical Center Parkway.
Yeah.
But for the most part, not many choices.
Yeah, that's the thing is I think there's a burger place out there that we eat. Sometimes we go out there that's really good. And and I'm not saying folks in Murfreesboro don't have good places to eat. I'm saying the fancy places. Like the super fancy, like a bourbon steak in downtown Nashville.
Or Morton's or something
Morton's,
like
the high-end stuff.
Del Frisco.
Don't have as much there. Brentwood, it's got Del Frisco's Grill. It's got some places. Nashville's obviously got the most, but, what do you have in the way of fancy in the borough? Now, where I live in Nolensville, we can barely keep anything there because we just don't have enough people yet. I still get stuck behind a tractor sometimes going into work. So we're not in fancy land yet in terms of restaurants out there, but Murfreesboro's getting big. There's a lot of stuff out there. So we'll talk to Matt at the 2 o'clock hour. But I want to talk about this letter that Joe Biden wrote 2 days ago. And and this is what makes me so mad. And I don't usually get mad. I'm not a mad guy. I'm more of a policy nerd. But what makes me frustrated and upset about this is Joe Biden, the self-proclaimed champion of democracy, is wrapping himself in democracy to protect himself from criticism. He's saying that it will be anti-democratic for him to step aside. Here's what he said. This is the letter from July 8th, 2024. It's on his letterhead. We had, quote, "We had a democratic nomination process and the voters have spoken clearly and decisively. I received over 14 million votes, 87% of the votes cast across the entire nominating process. I have nearly 3,900 delegates, making me the presumptive nominee of our party by a wide margin." And this is where this sticks in my craw. This was a process open to anyone who wanted to run. Wait a minute. Florida didn't even have, the Democratic Party in Florida just put Joe Biden on the ballot. There were still other candidates. Now, granted, he's the incumbent president. He's not going to have too many challenges. But in Florida, they just said no. We will not have a primary.
Even in places where they did have primaries and you had other Democratic candidates going up against him, they received no support from the DNC. That all
debates.
went to Biden, yeah.
They had no debates. By contrast, Trump, he didn't show up at the debates, but there were debates. Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley were viable candidates with national name ID, with money, and he had to actually run a primary. He did that. I was there for that.
And every time Biden would win a primary, they'd start tweeting it out how he, I'm the choice of the Democratic Party. No, you're not giving anybody a choice. You're the only choice.
And here's the thing that everybody forgets, particularly in conservative land. So does anybody know what the first voting state used to be for the Democrats? Starts with an I. Pretty easy. Iowa, right?
I thought it still was.
No.
What is it now?
South Carolina.
Oh.
Joe Biden put through his own plan to the DNC and said, we need to change the voting order. Now, I want you to think about this because this hadn't been in the news a whole lot. We need to change the order. Iowa caucuses where you have to go press the flesh, pound pavement, go all over the place. You're out. It's physical. It's a lot of back and forth discussions with voters. He actively, in his plan, said caucuses didn't give great enough participation and we should move away from caucuses, saying no Iowa. So Democrats changed it so South Carolina was first. Iowa was down the road, but it was an afterthought, and they did mail-in stuff. It was a nothing burger. This all goes to make one major point, and I want to get back to it after the break. There's something the Biden administration did here by rigging the game that we need to talk about. We'll do that on the other side of the break. I'm Cameron Smith. This is Super Talk 99.7.
Good afternoon. It's 12:30. I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. Partly sunny. We're at 88 degrees. We'll get you a weather forecast here in just a bit. Congressional Democrats still divided over President Biden's run for re-election. Some are backing him. Others are calling on him to bow out from the race after his debate performance against, of course, former President Trump. We've got more now from ABC's Rachel Scott.
Most Democrats telling us they're accepting the reality that even if they have concerns, there's really not much they can do about it. The president is vowing to stay in the race. Democratic leadership is rallying behind him. One thing that Democrats are watching tomorrow, that press conference that the president is expected to give, where he's expected to take a number of questions from reporters.
Back here in Middle Tennessee, the city of Murfreesboro announcing that it would not move forward with a planned amphitheater project. The Notes Live Entertainment Complex project agreement was set back in 2022. Officials from the city said that Notes Live failed to meet the conditions set forth in its development agreement. The new live entertainment campus was to be built on more than 20 acres at the southeast corner of Medical Center Parkway and Gateway Boulevard. News 2 reports that the Murfreesboro mayor, Shane McFarland, said that although they are not moving forward with this particular project, the city council had already approved plans for $26 million of infrastructure improvements to Medical Center Parkway. The city is now taking steps to get the property back based on the conditions set forth in the original agreement. That is the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
The Guaranteed Offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lock boxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer and start packing.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Matt Murphy for Members Nutrition. I want to tell you about the Members Nutrition difference, and I want to encourage you to go over to the Members Nutrition website. Number one, they believe at Members Nutrition that they can sell vitamins and supplements at a lower cost point, and they're doing it every single day at membersnutrition.com. Number two, they want to make these products right here in the United States of America, not from some overseas company, and they do that every single day. I encourage you to go to membersnutrition.com. You'll get 50% off your purchase price at checkout. You don't have to put in any codes. Just go to membersnutrition.com. Once again, membersnutrition.com.
Hey, it's Dan Mandis, and I am so glad that California Closets has fixed my closet catastrophe. After exact measuring and planning, they came over and got to work. Yeah, once it was all plotted out on their 3D CAD system, the pieces are measured, cut, and precisely installed into my space. It was clean, fast, and professional, and above all, my new closets look and function great. Now, this was my dormer, and now this is my new dormer thanks to California Closets. Look at all of this added space for shirts and shoes, you name it, and it is cut so precisely, simply amazing. And my old closet that has now been reborn as the ultimate in style and functionability, making the best use of the space that I had. They can work on just about anything: bedrooms, garages, home offices, closets, pantries, and so much more. Find them online, CaliforniaClosets.com, and see what they can do for you. You can schedule a free design consultation. Mention my name, CaliforniaClosets.com.
Welcome back. I'm Cameron Smith, filling in for Matt Murphy. So a couple of y'all made some good points. First, on Murfreesboro, Steakhouse 5, Primrose Table, and Five Senses are all upscale and very nice, writes Jared. So I want to be very careful. I'm not insulting the borough. I'm simply saying that was a concern raised to me. And as far as getting stuck behind a tractor, I like living in a place that I get stuck behind a tractor. I like to grow stuff. I like to be outside. So y'all don't need to get upset and say that I'm upset about tractors getting in my way. Now, if you're a slow driver.
Why do you hate puppies and kittens?
I don't know. I just go kitten punting all the time, where you just see how far you can punt that kitten and where it lands, and you get points for distance,
Tell the dog he's ugly, then throw him.
Yeah. No, people, come on, give me a little benefit of the doubt. I don't mind. I wait on a tractor, but I'll tell you what, if you're real old and you're driving real slow, and you got to get over, just please, for my sanity, for everyone else's. Tractor, fine. You're big. You got to move from one field to the next. No big deal.
As the old saying goes, is you don't have to go anywhere. Just get out of my way.
Right. I work on that. I don't want to let the frustration drive me to sin, but man, sometimes, some drivers, woo. But the point about this letter, Jason made the point. He said, he agreed. He said, well, look, they did vote. All right, put this wrinkle on it. He's lying the whole time. He's presenting a version of himself that is not accurate. So the idea that this was some open democratic process, it wasn't. This was a coronation. And then he asked this question: do we now just say that this process didn't matter, that the voters don't have a say? I decline to do that. I feel a deep obligation to the faith and trust of the voters of the Democratic Party have placed in me to run this year. It was their decision to make. Well, yeah, but again, you presented a version of you that wasn't fair and accurate. Your staff hid you.
Beyond that, though, this is not the first time that this is almost standard operating procedure for the Democrats. They decide who they want, then they install them. It's the same thing that happened with Hillary, because if you look at the details, Bernie Sanders should have been the nominee. They didn't want Bernie Sanders. They wanted Hillary Clinton, so they basically installed Hillary Clinton.
Well, and in this situation, the big deal to me is that they act. It's fake outrage. It's fake. We had no idea. Well, the average Twitter user, the average X user could have told you, hey, it doesn't look like he's doing so great. In fact, they did. It was everywhere. And now Democratic voters are like, well, we thought you told us that was just the Republicans lying to us. You said that these were cheap fakes and that that's literally what they said. And I get it. If I'm a Democratic voter, they're listening to leadership. Republicans listen to their leadership. That's how this goes in politics. But Democratic leadership, specifically Joe Biden and his campaign, dismissed all these concerns as fake news. They said Republicans were making it up. And now Democrats saw that, well, actually they weren't. This is real. This is a problem. And Joe Biden is saying, well, the democratic process, how can we say that here's what he says, how can we stand for democracy in our nation if we ignore it in our own party? I cannot do that. I will not do that. Well, sorry, Joe, you lied. If I'm a Democratic voter right now, I feel like you lied to me to win those votes. And so the idea that somehow you just get to keep them and that you're above reproach and that it's anti-democratic to question Joe Biden is a joke. We have to, and this is fundamentally where I come from. If you want to know my political anchor, it's question authority. It's figure out what they're trying to run and call them on it. And this idea that Joe Biden would say, well, Trump's the threat to democracy. Oh, hey, remember when Democrats were out there saying Trump's not going to leave the White House? He's saying the election's fake and he's never going to leave and he's going to take authority and he's going to overthrow the American government. And what did Trump do? Left. He did. Whether he wanted to or not, whether he mouthed about it or not, he left. Now you've got Joe Biden holding on to political power to the detriment of not just the country, but his own party. And yet somehow Trump's still the threat, the bigger threat. And that to me says there's not a hill of beans difference here. This is a guy who's saying I'm a narcissist because guess what? I wrote a column over on AOL.com. It made people so mad because the headline was only Joe Biden can save America. That was the headline. And it's about Joe Biden's own self-mythology. So I had a lot of Republicans only read the headline yelling at me saying, you would say that. That's so like you liberal media mouthpiece. And I said, Rhino, you clearly didn't read the column. Because I point out that the kid from Scranton is a man of the people. He stood shoulder to shoulder with a black family against angry protesters during the civil rights era. He is a blue-collar icon. He put on his trucker cap and drove a big rig for a while. After scraping to get by, he was the first in his family to go to college. And you know what? This is from a guy whose uncle was almost certainly eaten by cannibals during World War II. Here's the problem with all that. It's a lie. It's fake.
He was the first member of his family to lie about where he graduated in his class.
Right. I mean, and Bella retweeted this, but I mean, this is... For every MAGA Trump supporter out there claiming Trump just tells it like it is, there's a Biden supporter saying at least Biden tells the truth. That was the debate response is, well, at least he tells the truth. No, he doesn't. The media calls out Trump stuff all the time. Every time Trump exaggerates or lies, which he does, both of those things, the media gets every last one, puts it on a loop and says, see. But when Joe Biden makes stuff up, it's sort of like, oh, he's just Joe. He's Joe. He's being Joe. And they say, at least he tells the truth. Well, he doesn't. He's a career politician who's been in office for 50 years. Okay? And he's made so much off being in public office, he doesn't even know. In April of 2024, he delivered a speech in Scranton, and he said, I hope you're all able to make $400,000. I never did. I want y'all to catch the irony here. It's the president of the United States telling people he never made $400,000. You know what the salary for the president of the United States is?
$400,000.
$400,000. I mean, I'm sorry. You can't make this up. This is real. That was in April of 24. Like, he said that. And so I actually looked into it. And in my column, I pulled this out that he's made $400,000 several times over his career. Because he's published these things. Nobody just goes and looks. All you have to go is look and point it out. In 2017, he made more than $11 million. He left office and went on the speaking circuit. $11 million. Between 17 and 18, he made another $4-something million. I mean, this is...
Well, that's not 400,000, Cameron.
Right. He
was talking about 400,000.
Right.
This is the first time he's made 400,000.
Exactly that number. Okay. And I quoted the great Buddy the Elf and said, Biden sits on a throne of lies. He does. He is lying, exaggerating. And y'all remember Counsel Robert Hur, Special Counsel Robert Hur, and he characterized Biden. This created all the uproar previously, before the debate. Quote, as a well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory. And that's why he declined to prosecute for the mishandling of classified documents. That's the truth. And here's what Democrats had to say. I think it was entirely, this is Kamala Harris, said it was gratuitous, inaccurate, and inappropriate. I think it was entirely inappropriate way to approach the remit of the special counsel and the role of the special counsel. That's what Senator Merkley said. I mean, you can go down the list. Senator John Ossoff of Georgia. I found Biden to be sharp, focused, impressive, formidable, and effective. Everybody, Karine Jean-Pierre, he passes a cognitive test every day. Okay. And then they're outraged when he asks the question, and they dismiss it. And she's been doing that. She did it to Peter Doocy, I guess, yesterday. He asked the question, and she said, we're done here, and just left. And that, to me, is the problem. I've seen this before. I saw it with Robert Byrd, senator from West Virginia. When I worked in the Senate, he was way too old. He had lost all his senses, literally was in a wheelchair being wheeled around by staff, and yet he was fully capable of holding office. No, he wasn't. His staff just kept him propped up.
They were doing that with Dianne Feinstein towards her end.
Feinstein's the other example. Before that, Strom Thurmond. We've seen this story before, folks. It doesn't go well, but everybody around them has an incentive to keep them propped up as long as possible, because when they're gone, the power's gone. The lights go off. That's the way it is. We've got Dan and Franklin. We got short time before the break, Dan, but I want to get to you. Dan, what are you thinking?
Well, you just brought up Jean-Pierre.
Yep.
And it's very important to pay attention to the little words that she uses. And to me, she's like the worst elementary school teacher that you had. She's so condescending to the press. It's like the 4th or 5th grade teacher that you just hated and wanted to get out of that year. But she uses the word respect. We really respect, the Black Caucus, or we respect this group or that group. You know who they don't respect? They don't respect the infant in the womb. They don't respect anybody like you and me. I don't know if you're pink and tan, but I'm pink and tan. I'm not white. They don't respect Christians. They don't respect conservatives. They don't respect...
By the way, that's the first time I've heard of pink and tan. That sounds really interesting way to describe me, but okay.
Yeah, that's my favorite one. I actually spoke to some lovely African-American Christian women a few weeks ago, and I had a great conversation with them. And I said, I'm not white, I'm pink and tan. And they go... the one lady goes, well, I'm not black. And I was like, these are my people. I was like, oh, yeah. But you see these little words that Jean-Pierre, whatever her name is, Van Dam, she uses all the time. And she's so condescending. It's unbelievable. Last thing, Kayleigh McEnany, I think her name was, was Trump's spokesperson. She was amazing. The contrast between her and Jean-Claude Van Damme Pierre, whatever her name is night and day. It's unbelievable.
Well, yeah, and even her predecessor, Jen Psaki, she was way better.
Oh, yeah.
She was better. Yeah. And she's not. Yeah. And I appreciate it, Dan. Thanks for the call. I think that's a huge part of the problem is when you got a bad mouthpiece. I'll say, for example, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, in my mind, had the hardest job because that was at the peak of Trump tweets and the media was just hammering her every day for the weird stuff that he would say on Twitter. And it was weird. And she dealt with it as best she could. She did the political pivot. She knew what to do. The outrage response is never okay. If you're a communications professional and you just get angry and dismissive, that dog will not hunt. That's not a way to do this because then you reflect poorly on your boss. And you don't want to be the story. You want it to be about your boss being great and doing what they need to do. I know this from my time on Capitol Hill. And Sean points out on the super text line, we the people have turned Congress into a nursing home. Amen, Sean. I think that's a huge part of the problem. We're in a situation where we just kind of keep sending the same folks again and again. I understand the power of incumbency. It's name ID. We get familiar and accustomed to them. Well, if a leader's not really leading, if a leader's not really providing anything, then can them. Get rid of them. It doesn't mean you have to go the opposite direction. I mean, Tennessee is a deep red state. It doesn't mean you have to elect a Democrat. It just means you might want to think about a primary. Okay. It's on us. We created the problem. But you don't have to blame Trump and Biden for the fact we got two octogenarians at the top of the ticket. That's us. We had other options, particularly Republicans. We had other options. We had younger options. We had options that have a political future because of their remaining life expectancy. And we said, nah, not interesting. In fairness, they were also Rands. Like they were, well, you know, Trump's great, but I'm Trump better or something. They were all terrible campaigns. So I get that. I understand why people looked at DeSantis, looked at Haley, looked at Scott and said, okay, but none of y'all are telling me why the other guy's not the better option. You just say, you're super great, and nobody bought it. But on the Democratic side of the ticket, nobody sort of blinked an eye that, hey, this guy is older than dirt, and he has fading capacity. There was a candidate in the race who was saying that, and Democrats just ignored him. Said, no, that's just Republican misinformation. We got to take a break. I'm Cameron Smith. This is the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7.
Hey, it's Dan Mandis, and I am so glad that California Closets has fixed my closet catastrophe. After exact measuring and planning, they came over and got to work. Yeah, once it was all plotted out on their 3D CAD system, the pieces are measured, cut, and precisely installed into my space. It was clean, fast, and professional, and above all, my new closets look and function great. Now, this was my dormer, and now this is my new dormer thanks to California Closets. Look at all of this added space for shirts and shoes, you name it, and it is cut so precisely, simply amazing. And my old closet that has now been reborn as the ultimate in style and functionality, making the best use of the space that I had. They can work on just about anything: bedrooms, garages, home offices, closets, pantries, and so much more. Find them online, CaliforniaClosets.com, and see what they can do for you. You can schedule a free design consultation. Mention my name, CaliforniaClosets.com.
The guaranteed offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lock boxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer and start packing.
Good afternoon. It is exactly 1 p.m. I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. Mostly sunny on this Wednesday, 84 degrees on Music Row. A complete weather forecast in a couple of minutes. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. He was asked today if House Democrats are still raising questions about President Biden's mental fitness. Jeffries says he believes the president will win in November. However, he does acknowledge that concerns remain.
We're going to continue to have candid, comprehensive, and clear-eyed conversations with members of the House Democratic Caucus. That's been the approach that we've taken from the very beginning of this Congress. It's worked, and it will continue.
In Nashville this morning, Metro Police releasing details of a deadly crash that involved an officer earlier today.
It was around 2:15 this morning when 37-year-old and 12-year Metro Nashville Police Department veteran Homicide Sergeant Trevor Von Dolan was headed to a suicide investigation. A Toyota Camry veered into his lane of travel on Bell Road at Mountain View Road. The Camry had run over the right curb, veered back to the left, and into the northbound lane in which Sergeant Von Dolan was driving. The Camry hitting the police Ford Edge SUV head on. Images from the scene show it was a violent collision, car parts and fluids from both vehicles covering the road. The driver of the Camry died at the scene. Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Sergeant Von Dolan remains hospitalized with serious injuries. As of yet, the name of the driver of that Camry who has passed away has not been released. That is the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
Welcome back to the Matt Murphy Show. I'm Cameron Smith. In the second hour of the show, we've got one more after this. We were reading Joe Biden's letter to Congress. We were talking about how he's shrouding himself in democracy itself to say that even questioning is anti-democratic.
Do you think that he actually participated in writing that, like he dictated the majority of it, or was it just written and he signed it?
I'm thinking the latter. It wouldn't surprise me if he said, we need to write Congress, but there's no way the guy that was on that debate stage penned this letter himself. And that's pretty normal, oddly, for most folks that do write these letters. They're letters from staff. I worked on senatorial
It's like a
staff.
speech. He's not going to sit down and write his own State of the Union speech.
Right. And so this is ultimately, it points to the problem, which is when you have your staff and you have everybody else propping you up, that doesn't really matter what you say. And I think it still does. I think it still matters who's in charge, because it's normal for staff to write a letter like this to Congress, draft it for you, say what they think you want to say, and then you redline it and you might clean up some stuff. But there's just such an incongruence between the Biden we see, who's off the cuff, who's in normal conversation, and the scripted, teleprompted Biden. He can still read. That's great. But even the Stephanopoulos interview didn't inspire anybody's confidence. Nobody watched that and said, everything's going great. We got no problem. And we keep acting like this is a new thing. That, the debate, it's a new thing. Well, George Clooney's come out and he's said, hey, no, this isn't a new thing. Oh, yeah, by the way, I've noticed some of these things and seen some of these things. So is the rest of the country. So is the other half of the political spectrum who's been raising this repeatedly, like, this isn't great. And this is different. Again, I'm fine criticizing Trump. It doesn't bother me. But this is different than saying, well, Trump rambles, or he gets off topic, or he says weird stuff. He doesn't stand there with his mouth open in an indefensible posture. As I've said previously, watching that debate was like watching an MMA fight where one of the fighters is defenseless. That's when the ref jumps in and usually stops it. That's when it's over. And Trump saying all manner of things that any rank and file Democrat could have combated, could have pushed back on, could have said, well, that's not true. This is the truth. He couldn't defend his own golf handicap, which I think is like a 6.7. And he said it was a 6 and then an 8. If you can't defend your golf handicap, how are you going to defend your policies that aren't popular to begin with? And that defenseless position made me feel bad for him, feel bad for America. I get it. I heard Chris talking about, conservatives for Joe Biden, and I get it. But we're Americans first. It's a bad deal to have that guy not in charge. That's the problem. It's not just about campaigns. It's not just about politics. It's about who's in charge. And here's what he said to Democrats. He said, this is the conclusion to his letter. The question of how to move forward has been well aired for over a week now, and it's time for it to end. We have one job, and that's to beat Donald Trump. We have 40 days to the Democratic Convention and 119 days to the general election. Any weakening of resolve or lack of clarity about the task ahead only helps Trump and hurts us. It's time to come together, move forward as a unified party, and defeat Donald Trump. The concerns have been aired for a week, so it's time for it to end. We should move on. That's literally what the President of the United States is saying about something as serious and grave as his cognitive capacity, where he refuses to answer any questions other than to say his job demands it. Well, that's some circular logic if I've ever heard it. Well, my job demands a cognitive test. Every single day is a cognitive test. Therefore, as long as I'm in this office, I am cognitively capable. You see how that works? It just chases its tail. Well, I'm here, so I must be able to be here. No, that's just not how that works. The fallacies that the Biden administration is putting out here about the president's condition and what he's able to do. I don't know whether he has Parkinson's or these other things. I do know he's 81 years old and declining physically and mentally. That's the truth. Months, might have been even more than a year ago when I wrote it. And I took some heat for it because I pointed out that having 2 octogenarian candidates was a problem because here's what I know about age, is that everybody ages. And when you get in those upper age, when you pass the American life expectancy, you decline from the peak version of yourself, physically and mentally. That's the truth. Nobody wants to hear it. Nobody wants to admit it. Nobody wants to deal with it. And we all have. We've watched people we love decline. It's terrible. I watched it with my grandfather. I hated it. There's nothing I could do about it, but I watched it and I saw it and I wrote about it and said, this is inevitable. There's plenty of research out there that shows that you lose mental plasticity. You lose the ability to make executive function decisions quickly. Like you'd want a president to do. And in fairness, it's not just a number. It's relative to who you are. So is Donald Trump a lesser version of his peak Donald Trumpness? Yeah, sure. That's true. Did maybe he have a higher starting point or a slower deterioration? Yeah, that can happen. So the idea that, well, they're both old, therefore, you can't say anything about Biden, you can't say about Trump. Well, that's false. That's not a conclusion that any of us should subscribe to because we can see the difference. Maxine Waters, for as annoying as she is on policy and politics, she's older than Joe Biden and in better shape than Joe Biden. From a cognitive standpoint, although I question many of the things that come out of her mouth, she's in better shape than Biden. Pelosi, very old. Better cognitive shape than Biden. I don't think, I've seen the decline even in Pelosi. I don't think she can get up there and do a full debate. But the vice president, for example, I can talk to her about a future unburdened by what has been and point out her weird rhetorical gaffes. Right. That kind of stuff. But she's not as diminished as Joe Biden. That's just a fact. And so anybody that's suggesting, well, see, Trump says weird stuff, Biden says weird stuff, same, you're not being honest. You're not being honest. And that's something that I think we all need to push back on because that's what they're trying to sneak by is this is over. We've talked about this. There's no choice. Here's the problem. You got all these Democrats that are starting to come out and question this and say, hey, this is going to be a bloodbath. This is going to be really, really bad for Democrats. And politicians love to save their own skin. They don't care about Joe Biden. They care about their race. And so those House candidates that are in competitive races, those Senate candidates that are in competitive races, they're looking at this and saying, this is going to have a drag on the ticket. It absolutely will because of a catch-22. And the catch-22 is pretty obvious to anybody that's paying attention, is that if Biden is physically and mentally incapable of running for office for the next 4 years, he's probably incapable of holding office right now. And so they're caught in this, but the American people see it and they say, well, all you Democrats standing by him, when you know something's up, you're not being honest with us. You're not giving us a fair shake. And so they're going to look at it and say, you know what? I'm going to give the Republican a shot. I'm going to give the Republican because you guys are standing by Joe Biden and you're lying about it. You're not being honest. And that's where it's going to hurt Democrats down ticket. Trump is his own thing. Not popular in swing state areas. Like he has his own challenges, but there's a lot of nose holders out there that are willing to vote for him right now because they see what Democrats are doing with Biden. And those same nose holders may not have any issues with the down ticket Republicans. And they say, oh, actually, I'm perfectly fine voting Republican, but we sure don't want to give Democrats power if they're telling us something that's not true and we can see it with our own eyes and ears. That's the biggest threat to the Democratic Party, is the fact that they're asking Americans to reject what they can see and hear in favor of a political narrative that's directly the opposite of that. And I don't know another good way to put it. We are going to be in a bad way if something bad happens right now, because as a country, because he's not there. On the Super Talk text line, Alan James says, here's the thing. If Biden stays in the race, there's a chance a senile old man can be reelected as president. If there's someone who's not senile for Democrats, then there's no chance that that type of person can be elected. I think the bigger issue here, one, I don't think Republicans are prepared in any way for Democrats to actually give Biden the hee-ho and deal with another candidate. I just don't think Republicans have even considered that. I don't think they're prepared, and I think that's going to show through some of the flaws of President Trump's candidacy. However, I think the only thing that really concerns me here with Republicans, if Joe Biden stays in this race, is the Republican slam dunk theory. That the polls start showing, well, Trump's up 10 in Pennsylvania. There's no way Biden can win, so I don't have to show up. I don't have to show up to vote down ticket. I don't have, Trump's going to carry all of this. It's no big deal. Well, if Republicans bite that hook, line, and sinker, and Democrats are freaking out and they have machine politics, now keep in mind, there's a lot of Democrats who know the truth about Joe Biden but still hate Donald Trump. And so if Joe Biden is on life support, they're still going to vote for Joe Biden. And my concern is that Republicans think this is a done deal, that they think this race doesn't matter anymore, that it's not going to be close, and therefore, if I'm busy, I'll go do this. And I think that's something that we have to be concerned about, because I've seen it before. I saw this was Mitt Romney versus Obama. There's no way Mitt Romney should have lost that race. Obama had every headwind. He was not listening to the American people. There was a huge disconnect. And Mitt Romney tanked that race. Like, he did not do what he needed to do to win it. And that was one where no other president with those headwinds that Obama had faced had pulled off a victory at that time. That just was not the case. And Mitt Romney managed to lose because he thought it would, okay, well, I'm going to run my sort of milquetoast campaign and do the things and be the cookie cutter. And it didn't work, and he lost. And that's what I'm a little bit worried about could happen with Republicans on this one is, oh, well, Joe Biden's such a bad candidate. Joe Biden's old. It's obvious. He can't do public performances. He can't go off the cuff. It's all bad. So we're going to win. And I see y'all on the Super Talk text line of saying, the steal is always a factor. All right. I want to just address this right out of the gates. We have a process. We have legal challenges. That's how we do it. That's how we've always done it. That's how we continue to do it. And if Joe Biden ends up staying in and ends up being successful, I'm not going to say it's a steal right out of the gate, because I'm telling you what could happen, that he could still win. He could run his awful campaign where he can't really do anything, but Democrats hate Donald Trump and Republicans don't turn out because they think it's a slam dunk. Forget the steal. That's a way that could happen normally, because this was actually a close race literally until the debate. It's just now, a couple weeks after that, in subsequent performances, that we've seen, gaps widen in the swing states. We got to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about Project 2025. We'll talk about the Republican platform. We'll get deep into some of these things because, well, the media isn't. I'm Cameron Smith. You're listening to The Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7.
The conversation among Democrats about President Biden's ability to win in November has not quieted down any. Authorities launching an investigation this morning into a bomb threat at a Humphreys County truck stop. We'll have those stories coming up at 1:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Welcome back to the Matt Murphy Show. You're listening to Super Talk. Halfway through the show, Matt will be on The Drive with Brian Wilson in rare form with exceedingly long hair. It's
Please.
Stop it.
Just stop it. Stop engaging that silliness of his.
It is.
That is not long hair.
Well, your hair is actually long. Headless Bell, if you knew, is very long. But he's not a long hair guy, man. Like, he's just not. And so, okay, locks for Trump or whatever. Okay. I mean, it's a thing he's doing. It's certainly there. So I just suggested a way that Joe Biden could actually win the election. And several of y'all made this point, and I want to address it head on because the issue of legal challenges. You can't have it both ways. You can't love what the Supreme Court does when it strikes down Chevron or strikes down overcharging by DOJ related to January 6th and then say, well, but the courts, the system we have in place for challenging the election doesn't count. You know, that didn't do very well. We knew there was a problem and it didn't work. But that's the system. That's how we decided. That's how it works. And so I hear you and I understand your point, but it's the same legal system that these cases work through that resulted in the opinions that we like. And so that's the mechanism for challenging the results. So I urge anyone who sees any impropriety in the election to file suit and challenge the results because that's the right mechanism for determining whether they worked or not. You know, whether it was a fair election or not. And that's how it has to go because we don't have another method. There's not simply a declare it's fair. That's not a thing. So it has to work through the courts. And who sits at the top of the courts? The Supreme Court. And can the Supreme Court take up those cases and do what it wants? Yeah. Yeah, it can. And we've liked a lot of the decisions that court's made. So sometimes we don't. That's okay. But that's kind of how it works. So a couple things that I wanted to get into. I noticed Glenn Youngkin, whenever he makes headlines, it's kind of interesting. But he recently came out and had an executive order about technology in the classroom. And he's eliminating cell phone use in public schools across the state. They're still working out the individual rules, but the bottom line is there will be restrictions during instructional time that could include use of dedicated cell phone pouches, lockers, ways to restrict access. I've talked about this on the air. I wrote a column about this over in the Tennessean. There was legislation in the General Assembly about doing just this, and it failed because of safety concerns. Folks said, well, we don't want to cut off kids in the event of an emergency. We don't want to create a problem. Well, sure, you can have their phones in the classroom with them, just on a zipper pouch on the back of the door that costs like $10. Now, in Virginia, they were going to funnel $500,000 towards figuring this out, which I pointed out on Amazon. You can get the door lockers for cell phones for about $10 on Amazon. Really easy. And it doesn't really matter how.
Somebody's cousin doesn't get a government contract.
Right. The government, we need to have, y'all saw in New York and hopefully laughed that, Mayor Adams in New York came out demonstrating a trash can. And they had paid McKinsey and Company $4 million to figure out, hey, we should use trash cans as opposed to just leaving trash bags on the side of the street. If you can get that kind of money for that kind of conclusion, more power to you. But that was mind-boggling to see that.
Like the old saying goes, it's great work if you can get it.
It's great work if you can get it, and they can. Because some elected officials well, I don't know if we're going to use these trash cans
We need to find out if they're effective.
Right. Are they effective at holding trash inside them?
I don't know if we have any examples of these being functional, so we should do a $4 million campaign to test them.
In the summer of 2024, the city of New York figured out trash cans, so we can all be excited about that. But seriously, this should be a no-brainer. If any of y'all have got kids in any school, we run the spectrum. We have private school, homeschool, public school. In public school, in the classroom, the cell phone use is out of control and it is dumb. You've got kids that are not only cheating, they're distracted, they're not learning anything. A lot of these kids are addicted to their cell phones. It is a massive mental health crisis, just a general crisis, because kids need to spend less time on those things. And, you know, we do resets periodically because it's easy with tech to creep in. And we just round it up and log it up. Because if you don't, it creeps and it gets more and more. And then pretty soon it gets out of control. And it is absolutely appropriate for the state to engage and say, when it comes to instructional time, we're going to actually teach you. We expect you to be paying attention and not listening to music on your cell phone. The fact, I mean, just imagine this. The fact that kids have earbuds in and they're in the classroom listening to music on their phone. If I had done that at Brentwood Academy when I was in high school, I cannot imagine what would have happened to me. Don Dobbins, who was over there, you know, I guess he was my 8th grade English teacher. He would have thrown a dry erase marker or an eraser or a tennis ball or something at me. Like, that would not have been acceptable. Ray Dalton, who was my civics teacher and a wrestling coach, wouldn't. If I would have put earbuds in, he'd have made me eat them. I mean, it would not have been good. And yet that's the reality in some of our public schools in Tennessee. We're so obsessed about things we watch on cable news that we're missing things right under our nose. This is a big one. Glenn Youngkin's leading on it. Other folks. What's really kind of crazy is that 70%, I figured this out for my column, 70% of public school districts have it's an acceptable use policy, no tech in the classroom type thing, but it's, you can use your tech if it's for instructional, they just don't have any enforcement. So there's a lot of schools that say that, they just don't do that. And it's making our kids weird. Like, we need to stop it. And that's my expectation as a father, is that my kids can use good judgment, but their brains aren't fully developed. So, I mean, as much as I want to believe that, there's some responsibility to make good decisions here. Okay, we got to take a break. When we get back, I want to get into the GOP platform in 2024. I want to get into Project 2025. And we have Matt Harriman, who's running for Murfreesboro City Council in the next hour. But we got a lot to talk about. Project 2025 is 922 pages. It's a lot to go over. So we'll do that after the break. I'm Cameron Smith. You're listening to Super Talk 99.7.
Good afternoon. It is 32 minutes past 1 p.m. I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. Partly sunny, 85 degrees, a full forecast on the way. The conversation among Democrats about President Biden's ability to win in November has not quieted down very much. ABC's Stephen Portnoy, he has the latest from D.C.
Looking past the president's repeated insistence that he's not dropping out, former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi says she supports whatever Biden decides to do. She urges those in her party who harbor doubts about the president to keep their feelings private until this week's NATO summit wraps up. That, as George Clooney says in a New York Times op-ed, that Democrats need a new nominee. The prolific Hollywood fundraiser says every senator, member of the House, and governor he's spoken with privately agrees that Biden's presence at the top of the ticket will hurt the party.
Back in Middle Tennessee, authorities launched an investigation this morning into a bomb threat at a Humphreys County truck stop off I-40. The Humphreys County Sheriff's Office posted about the situation at the Pilot Travel Center on Highway 13 South at exit 143 off of I-40. That was before about 11:15 this morning. There was no indication that it was anything more than a hoax, according to authorities there, but they are currently investigating and trying to determine if any suspicious packages need any further investigation. The authorities there also saying that the Montgomery County Sheriff's Office was sending extra resources to help with that investigation. That is the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
Well, I see on the Super Talk text line, Cameron Smith here. Oh, by the way, go over at DCameron Smith on X, hashtag TNPolitics. Some of the things that I'm talking about, I tweet out too, and you should go join the conversation over there as well. On the Super Talk text line, Mac, a BA graduate, Berwyn Academy graduate from 87, had Mr. Dobbins. And so he also remembered Coach Dalton and Coach Patton's annual bench press contests. That's how you know you have great teachers, when they square off against one another in a bench press context. I mean, I'm actually okay with, a teacher who tosses dry erase markers from time to time and tennis balls.
That bench press was nothing more than a way for them to show which one of them could kick your ass harder.
Yeah, that's the point. When Mr. Dobbins would throw things, he wasn't trying to injure anyone, and he wouldn't, because it's like a tennis ball. And he's not beaning it at people's heads. But the idea was, you need to have your head on a swivel. You don't know what's coming your way. If you're goofing around and not paying attention to him, you're going to get embarrassed, because you're going to have a tennis ball that whacks you, and then it rolls around on the floor. And then you have to explain to everybody, well, I wasn't really paying attention. And I understand there were a bunch of snowflakes, and the idea of getting hit with a tennis ball is just, we can't have that. None of that stuff.
One day he might throw a brick.
Yeah, he might. And that's what keeps you paying attention in class. It's a tennis ball today. It could be a brick tomorrow. And we never knew. And I respect that. And, now that these folks are retired, or in Coach Dalton's case, passed on, I don't mind talking about it. And I can share my experience with the public. But as Mac points out, so Coach Compton, who was my best friend's dad, he was a science teacher and dean of students, everything. I mean, wonderful man, like dear human. And if you decided you didn't want to pay attention, he would take away your chair and you could do a wall sit instead. And that really got folks' attention. And I think that's great. It is not harmful. It doesn't hurt anyone. There's no abuse. It's simply, your chair is a privilege. If you want to learn, you can continue to sit in that chair. If you don't want to learn, you will sit on the wall. And then you're still going to learn. It's just going to be less comfortable. And I love that. I think we need to deal with that in the classroom. And we've failed. We've just failed miserably. Because we've said, we have disempowered teachers. We have said, well, if they don't want to do what you need them to do, well, you just ask, and then you ask again, and then you ask. No. Kids are there to learn. If there's a kid who's a distraction, I don't care how much money you have. Like, I understand. I live in Williamson County. I know that there's a high concentration of wealth and very special, magical people. But if your kid's a brat and is a distraction in the classroom, they need to be gone so other kids can learn. That's just the truth. And I don't care if it's my kids and, or somebody else. Yes, I know 7670 on the Super Talk text line said, there's no way that would work today. Yes, I'm aware. I agree with you. There's no way that would work today. I also think it's a part of the problem that we have basically said to teachers, you are a hostage in your own classroom. I think that we should let good teachers do what good teachers do, and that's teach. And however they need to do that to get the information across, let them. And I think that this notion that we're going to take these educators and folks that have dedicated their time to doing this. You want to know why school choice is out there? Want to know why this is a thing and it keeps coming back? It's a thing because students need to learn. And when things aren't working, we're saying, instead of fixing what's wrong in public schools, we're going to give parents other options. I'm for that, but I'm also for, hey, let's fix public schools. Let's give teachers that discretion. Let's give them the capacity to say, hey, no, you can't be in my class anymore. You have to leave now. And I and you can, again, I'm saying this publicly, so you can all hear it. There's a record of it now. I think that the Alternative Learning Center that's over there by the Juvenile Justice Facility in Franklin is a fantastic. You got to wear uniforms. It's very strict. It's very rigid. And kids dread it. They don't want to go there. They don't want to have their freedoms taken away. You know what they do? They learn. And I have no problem taking a poorly behaved, privileged kid and sending them there and saying, this is where you go for this week or for 2 weeks until you learn to listen to your teacher and do what you need to do to not disrupt the learning environment. Absolutely supportive. I would dedicate funding to those alternative learning centers all over Tennessee and say, if you are not getting along with your teacher, we don't need corrections officers and police in the classroom to come fix it. We should let the teachers do it. If the teacher says, hey, I'm sending you to Alternative Learning Center because you're disrupting what I'm trying to do, then you go. And right now, that's not happening. That's a huge, huge problem, is that my parents would back teachers and coaches sometimes over me. Actually, pretty frequently over me, now that I think about it. That it was the expectation. I was there to learn. They were there to teach me. They were the adult in the room. And how I felt about it was it was irrelevant. What was most relevant was, did I learn or not? And my parents would hold the teachers and coaches accountable. If I was not progressing because I was doing what I was told and it wasn't working, they would ask about it. I remember, it being in meetings where my parents asked Coach Flatt, the head football coach at Brentwood Academy, a coaching legend in Tennessee, well, what does he need to do? What does he need to do to progress and to create opportunity for himself? And Coach Flatt, he didn't mess around. He gave him answers. He said, these are the things I need to see, and if he does those, then he has opportunity. I did those, I had opportunity. He meant what he said. And so I think this notion of public school bad doesn't have to be the case. It's just that we are disconnecting any sort of sanity from the public school classroom. Disempowering teachers and creating a situation where the inmates are running the asylum. The easiest place to start is to just take technology out of the classroom. Now, some of those kids are going to have withdrawals and go nuts. But the truth is, if you start there, then you can start the process of getting control back. And so I hear 8602 on the SuperTalk text line says, well, much of what teachers are teaching these days need to be disrupted. Math doesn't. Science doesn't. Reading, language arts, it doesn't. I mean, we have school boards. We elect school boards. I talked about Dr. Margie Johnson, who's running as the Republican for Williamson County School Board. I guess place 5. She's great. And I think giving that local control there, making sure people know what's going on in the classroom, making sure parents are informed, that's a big part of it. But if you can't have control of your classroom, you can't teach anything, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. And this is a tough one for me because I lost my brother to suicide. I understand depression and mental health issues and things like that. I'm not discounting that stuff at all. But what I do know as the father of, I got 4 boys in my home right now, is if we do not create structure, if we do not create the conditions for success, they will not succeed because they're not adults. You have to create discipline. You have to create order, and it doesn't always go well. And that, to me, is what we're missing. We want, and I'll just put it out where the goats can get it. We got more people that want to be their kids' buddies than want to be their parents. And until we get over that, we got a big problem. And I got somebody, 0154. I taught in high school in Williamson County for 7 years. Most kids who didn't learn or didn't get good grades were not disruptive. They just sat there and didn't care. That's excellent. I hope that is the case. But when we have this technology stuff, there's a bigger difference than didn't sit there and didn't care, right? If I've got somebody listening to music in their headphones, that's a distraction. If I've got somebody that's cheating in the classroom on an assignment, which I know is a problem. I'm not questioning whether it's a problem. I know it's a problem. Then that's penalizing the students with character who don't. These things we got to address them. I expect our political class to do that. I'm going to agitate for that. I'm going to continue to press on that. And I'll further. This is a radical thought in 2024, but boys are radically different than girls. They are. And so the structure that needs to be in place and the practices and teaching methods and things like that, this one-size-fits-all thing does not work. We need to do better. We can do better. This is not some kind of crazy radical idea. It's just, let's start with the basics. Remove the distractions from the classroom. Empower teachers to do what they do teach. If they're good teachers and their students are progressing and getting those results, you need to pay them more. You need to retain them. And you know what? If they're a teacher and they feel called to teach and their students aren't getting the results, you need to fire them. That's how that works. That's how every other job on the planet works. So we need to take a break. This is the Matt Murphy Show. I'm Cameron Smith, and this is Super Talk 99.7.
A Democratic U.S. Senator making no bones about his stance on whether Joe Biden should stay in the presidential race. And a Southern Middle Tennessee elected official, he and his wife, arrested in connection with a fatal overdose in Franklin County. We'll have those stories at 2 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Welcome back to the Matt Murphy Show. I'm Cameron Smith. Winding down this second hour. Man, time flies when we're having fun, and you guys are great over on the Super Talk text line, 615-737-9986. You got me a little fired up. When we're talking about kids in the classroom, that's close to my heart. It's something that matters to me dearly. And we kind of just stare at our navels on this stuff. We act like, well, it's not going well, and there's some things we don't like, and therefore we need to do all these grandiose things. I support school choice unequivocally. I think parents should have options. I think public schools are a very good option for the average student. That's what they're geared towards, and that's what they're built to, who they're built to service. You're going to have kids that are more advanced, and public school may not be the best option for them, and you're going to have kids that have some challenges, and public school may not be the best option for them. There's nothing bad about that. It's just creating more than one process for kids to learn that's publicly funded makes a lot of sense. That said, don't give up on public schools. Don't think that there's nothing we can do here. We're moving on to school choice and that we're not going to solve this. Ban that technology in the classroom and say, no, we're going to take control of this schoolroom. The teachers are going to be the adults in the room. They're going to make decisions. And if you don't want to play ball, then that principal will meet with you and your parents, but you're probably going to the Alternative Learning Center for a little while until you can learn to pipe down and learn. I know that's harsh, but that's kind of where we are. We got a choice to make. Either we let it continuing to go the wrong way or we go the right way. The right way is for you to hang around. I'm Cameron Smith. This is the Matt Murphy Show, and this is Super Talk 99.7.
Good afternoon. It is 2 p.m. I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. It's partly sunny, 86 degrees. A full weather forecast is coming up. Today, President Biden meeting with NATO leaders in Washington for the NATO summit. But the chatter continues to swirl among Democratic lawmakers as to whether the president can win re-election. So far, a majority of Democratic lawmakers are standing behind Biden, but several have come out publicly to say he should step aside. Senate Democrats will hold a closed-door meeting tomorrow to discuss all this. ABC's Rachel Scott says that one senator, though, Michael Bennet of Colorado, says that Biden needs to go.
He was very blunt. He delivered a very blunt and stark warning. He said that if President Biden remains on the ticket, he believes that Donald Trump is going to win by a landslide and that he's going to take the House and the Senate with him. Almost nobody wants to hear that here on Capitol Hill. House Democrats think that they have a pretty good chance of actually winning the majority here in the House this November. And Senate Democrats want to hang on to the majority in the Senate as well.
Closer to home, a Southern Middle Tennessee elected official's been arrested in connection with a fatal overdose in Franklin County. News 2 reports that according to the 12th Judicial District Attorney, Courtney Lynch, Deckard Alderman Justin Stubblefield and his wife, Paige, they've been charged with drug-related offenses tied to two 2022 overdose deaths. Lynch's office began investigating after William Horton and Miles Kincaid died back in April of 22 in Franklin County. New information was uncovered by Deckard police investigators working with the drug task force. Based on that investigation, agents charged Stubblefield and his wife with one count of conspiracy to distribute oxycodone, which is a Schedule II controlled substance. Justin was also charged with one count of money laundering based on the financial transactions that occurred during the alleged distribution of the drug. The Stubblefields, they were arrested on July 9th and booked into the Franklin County Jail. That is the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
Y'all got me so fired up on the Super Talk text line, 615-737-9986, about taking back our classroom, not letting the inmates run the asylum. We haven't even got to the Republican 2024 agenda or Project 2025. We're going to have to do that later. It might even get bumped to Friday when I'll be back. For those of you who miss me, Jason, I know every time when I come on air, it's like Christmas morning, and you get so excited. Several of y'all have been very encouraging and complimentary, and I really do appreciate it. Like I said, I'm like radio granddad. It's my job to come here, get y'all spun up and excited, and then return you to your regularly scheduled program. This is Matt Murphy's show. I try to do a good job of holding down the fort while he's filling in for Brian or doing whatever he needs to do. But yeah, I'm radio granddad. That's what I do, and I feel very good about that. I have with me now, as Joe Biden is the future to nowhere, Matt Harriman is the future to somewhere. He's the opposite of that. He's engaging this space, this political space, this brave new world, as somebody who's been behind the scenes with Governor Lee and others, and is now saying, I want to serve in a publicly facing role. young, smart, sharp, capable, unlike the President of the United States. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you, Cam. I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me on.
So I got to ask the most pressing question in the show today. I'm not asking you to pick favorites. Just if you have to take your wife to a nice dinner in the borough, where are you going?
I'm going to the Alley on Main.
Okay.
Sean and Christy Hackison own that. I think this fall will actually be, I think, their 10-year anniversary. It's just off the square here in Murfreesboro. Phenomenal local restaurant, and they are just relentless about giving back to our community, which makes you want to go there all the more.
So what is the Alley on Main? Is that what it's called?
The Alley on Main. That's it.
All right. Well, I appreciate that. And so here's my question. The borough's growing. It is undeniably growing. As you're running for city council, what do you see and what do you think you can do to help?
Well, what I see, Cam, is, people are obviously concerned with that growth and what comes with it. But as somebody who grew up in rural West Tennessee, I was sharing this with some others yesterday, that the challenges that we are facing in the city of Murfreesboro, there are rural communities across this country and nation that would just die to have the challenges that we have here. So we're really blessed with the growth that we're seeing. Now, it has to be managed, and as part of my platform, I've got the ABCs for Murfreesboro, which is achieve in education, believe in public safety, and then commit to infrastructure. And so the major part of growth is keeping up with infrastructure, right? And so I think because of my unique background, working at the state level with.
So what does that? Hang on. What does that word mean? Because a lot of folks say infrastructure. For our listeners, when you say, "Hey, we got to deal with infrastructure," be specific. Like, what are the things that you see in Murfreesboro that need to be addressed?
Well, chiefly it's roads, because most people when they talk about growth, one of the biggest things people complain about here is traffic. But it's not just roads. It's roads and bridges and water and sewer and all of the key things that keep this electricity and all of the things that come with growth. When you put in a neighborhood, can you run sewer to it? Can you get essential services to that area? So that's what infrastructure is. I know it is a kind of a broad term, but most people here, it's traffic.
Right. Yeah, I get that. I've driven there whenever we're over there with football games and other things like that. It's certainly with all that growth, that's just something you got to deal with. You might have heard me on the prior segment in the last hour talking about when it comes to education, the distractions in the classroom posed by technology. Where are you on some of those issues? I mean, what do you think the things are that are holding kids back from being able to get that quality education that they need?
Yeah, I've listened a little bit over the last half hour, and I love the conversation. As you probably know, I've been involved in the school choice space, but more specifically the charter school space, and I'm proud to have been part of bringing the first charter school to Murfreesboro and Rutherford County. And we've chosen at our charter school to be a no phone zone, essentially. And we will have lockers for kids to check those in when they get there, because you're right. They are a major distraction. I don't know if some of this conversation is fueled by Jonathan Haidt's newest book, The Anxious Generation, but I would encourage your listeners to listen to that book, especially if they're a parent of young kids or teenagers. It's honestly a little bit scary, the effects that technology has on our kids. And I think as parents, we want to do everything that we can to protect them, not shelter them, but protect them. You don't want your kid to be walking around with a device that some stranger in God knows where can send them God knows what.
Yeah, exactly. And only God does know, because some of it's ridiculous.
That's right.
So tell me, if you're accessible. So one of the things that whenever candidates come on and we talk to them, folks forget to mention when the elections are being held, because they're thinking election in November. When's this election?
Yeah, so this is a county or a city general election, and in Tennessee, those match up with our August primary. So we are literally days from being underway with voting. So voting will start this Friday, July the 12th. It will run through July the 27th, with Election Day being Thursday, August the 1st. And the beauty of we are, I don't know how many other counties at this point do this. It was ran as a pilot several years back, but you can early vote in lots of different locations around Rutherford County. And then actually on Election Day, we have vote centers here. So they kind of did away with precincts. So literally they'll have 30 places across the entire county where you can vote at any one of them.
Yeah, and I love early voting. I know some folks don't. I love early voting because I do that all the time. It is so easy and gets it out of the way. You skip the lines. It's safe. It's secure. It's a great way to vote. And I love it that Tennessee has that option for so many folks in so many different areas. True story. Killed my first deer in Rutherford County. The big question for you, I'm going to ask two other questions and then, see what other things that we have to discuss. The first is, let's say you're successful, that you end up on the city council. What is the first issue that you take up, and what do you want to do about it?
I think I've heard the people loud and clear, and they are frustrated with our traffic. Not to beat a dead horse here, Cam, but I mean, we are the fastest growing city in the state. We've been in the top 10 or 15 fastest growing cities in the entire country pretty consistently over the past 3, 4, 5 years. So what I want to do, 5 of our main roads in the city of Murfreesboro are state roads. And I guarantee you 90% of people on a daily basis who live in the city drive on these roads. And so what I want to do is roll my sleeves up, sit down with our mayor and our city manager and understand where we're at with those state roads. And I know the city fronted some money to the state to try and expedite that process. And then I want to get caught up to speed on where we're at with that. And then I want to go sit down with our friend Butch Ely, who's the TDOT commissioner, and those in our state delegation and really push hard to, get some of these projects moving here in our city.
So explain to me, so I know your background. A lot of our listeners don't. A lot of our listeners in Murfreesboro don't. So when you talk about Butch and this background, obviously having worked for Governor Lee, what about your experience helps you to be able to work with the state on that critical issue for Murfreesboro?
Well, to steal a line from our former Lieutenant Governor, Mr. Ron Ramsey, it matters who governs. And then I also think, over the years as kids, our parents tell us, it's all about relationships, son. It's all about relationships. It's not necessarily what you know, but who you know. And
sure.
As a kid, you scratch your head and you're like, what does that mean?
Yeah, I'll tell you, if I had a road issue in Murfreesboro, I would want somebody working with the state who'd carried legislation for the governor. That seems like it might be useful.
And that's kind of my point. I think it's nothing against anybody that's currently on the council or running, but I really do think that I have the most unique background and experience and skill set to be an effective leader for our city. And that's why I'm running. And, I think when it comes to the traffic issue, I really do think that issue specifically is where I can make the most difference. Because I do have a personal relationship with the commissioner of the Department of Transportation, who is Butch Ely. And as you alluded to, we serve together in the governor's office. And those types of relationships really do make a huge difference when you have a city like ours that's growing leaps and bounds.
So one of the big things that matters to me, and this will be my last question, is your dad. You got 2 boys, a girl. I think you have a golden retriever. And I see it on your campaign website. You see the age of Joe Biden and you see the age in the United States Senate. And frankly, you see this everywhere. You got a young family. What do we got to do to get more people like you off the sidelines, running for city council, running for mayor, running for Congress, running in a way that can work with your life, because I know you care about your family. I know you're not doing this in any way to hurt them, but it is a sacrifice. You know this. You've watched other politicians do it. How do we pull folks out of business, out of the community, and say, hey, we got to do this together. We've got to get more folks that are younger who are willing to serve?
You know, it's a good question, and I wish I had a silver bullet to that, because I think, you know, broadly, our Republican Party needs to do a better job at that. I do think that groups like Turning Point USA and college Republicans, young Republicans, you know, but especially Turning Point, especially over the past probably 5 years or so, has done a tremendous job reaching out to the younger generation to get them involved and encourage them to do that. I think that's really where it starts, is encouraging our young people to be active and involved in the process. That's part of what I've enjoyed about running, is having conversations like that of people who are like, gosh, I'm so glad to see that you're running. You know, I'm interested in politics, or just interested in being more involved. How do I get involved? And I you know, what I tell people is I think you should be involved in the local party. I think you should be involved if you're, you know, with whatever the age is for young Republicans. I think you should be involved in those things, and also your Rotary clubs and your other charities.
Those civic organizations,
civic
yeah.
That's right. So that's where you learn, you know, and meet business owners, because ultimately, you know, I was having a conversation with a guy recently, actually, Jonathan McGuire. He owns all the McDonald's here in town, and was telling me just something that seemed very practical with his business and working with the city on some development, that, you know, a bureaucrat sitting in an office that has no idea or no real world experience necessarily made a decision, and that affected his business.
Right.
And so, you know, being involved in the business community and being accessible to those people, I think, is important too.
Well, I appreciate it, Matt. Is there anything else you want to tell folks, you know, as you run for city council? I'm floored that you're running, so it's super exciting, but we're running into a break, and so I want to give you a chance to say anything else that you want to get off your chest.
Well, if your listeners, if they're in Murfreesboro, I need their help, I need their support, I need their vote. I'm asking for their vote. Again, voting starts on Friday, July the 12th, runs through the 27th of July, and then, of course, Election Day is August the 1st.
Well, I appreciate it, Matt. Best of luck to you in Murfreesboro. I mean, this is exciting, and Matt's a candidate that you should give a good look-see. So thanks for coming, Matt.
Thanks, Cam. Appreciate you.
All right, bye-bye. So that's Matt Harriman, folks. And if you want to see a better future, you can't keep recycling the past. You got to bring people on board and encourage them and say, hey, here's a new leader. Here's somebody that's got some good experience, got good character, cares about the community, is going to engage. And I encourage candidates like that. I worked with Matt on Governor Lee's transition. I got to know him, and I am excited to see somebody like him running for office. And frankly, we need a lot of other folks. And I want, you know, if you can hear this and you're thinking about it and you're not sure, reach out to me. I'm not hard to find. I want to encourage as many people as possible to run, because this whole process, if you think it's crazy and weird and run by a bunch of folks that are super old, you know what? I agree with you. And we got to find some folks who will run that are different. And so Matt's one of those. And if you're in Murfreesboro, give him a look. Talk to him. Get to know him. And, you know, I'm sure he would appreciate your vote. We got to take a break. I'm Cameron Smith. This is the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7.
President Biden making a number of speeches today. In one of those, he claimed that NATO is stronger because of his leadership. And power outages in South Texas remain a major issue due to Hurricane Beryl. We'll have those stories at 2:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Welcome back. Almost pressed the wrong button, but I managed to recover. We had Matt Harriman on, who's running for city council in Murfreesboro, and Aaron called about an election in Williamson County. Aaron, what's going on?
Hey, appreciate you taking the call, Cameron. I'm not a candidate, but I'm supporting a candidate for Williamson School District 1.
Okay.
And I'm just trying to figure out how to get him and your station together, or 99.7 together, so that he can kind of... I know that as a whole and historically, we've been like, it's a smaller election, it doesn't matter. I think it's coming full circle where...
Oh, no, it matters.
Realize, I agree wholeheartedly, and I think that's becoming more and more apparent to people. So I think these, what we'll call smaller elections, albeit more important elections, need to be more prominent in our discussions and in our community. So that's why I want to know how I can get Tony on your show or Matt's show or somebody on 99.7.
Yeah, the easiest way is just to go on X and, this is Matt's show, so tweet at Matt and just say, hey, and just DM him. That's always, and anybody that hears this, that's the greatest way. The folks here, the hosts, the guest hosts, we're pretty accessible. If you just reach out to us, we'll generally respond. Sometimes it gets a little overwhelming. I'm a columnist for the Tennessean. I get a lot of emails, readers and stuff, so I can't always respond to everybody, but generally speaking, we try to be as responsive as we can, and that's the easiest way to get in touch.
Very much appreciated, sir.
All right. Appreciate it, Aaron. Thank you for the call. So sometimes on radio, we forget that we're also on camera. And I may or may not have had a flipping the bird war with Matt Murphy during the last segment. And some of y'all caught me on camera.
That's okay. We do that all the time.
Okay.
I'll shoot him one. He shoots me one.
Yeah, we were.
Of course, I'm not on camera, but you can see his as clear as day. Yeah, he'll hold it up to the camera.
We don't back down. Please don't tell my mom. I won't hear the end of it. But
tell his kids though. Let them know
he deserved it. He needed it. I was giving him the business. Philip on the Super Talk text line raised a fair question, and I think it's, if I'm asking Matt, how do we get more people into running for office? Why am I not? I'm 42. I can run for office. The answer is, and I'll just have a personal moment here. I absolutely want to run. I absolutely want to serve. That's something that's been on my mind for a long time. I almost lost my family, though, because for a long time I thought they wanted me to work really hard and make a bunch of money, and they really wanted to spend time with me. And my boys are a huge priority for me. Like I said, the 4 dudes in my house, I had a conversation with my oldest last night that he just needed some of my time. And I want to make sure that while these guys are growing, I get kind of emotional about it, that I'm there for them. And I want to be there for my community. I coach, I do those things. I engage my community quite well. But as far as politics right now, elected office, a lot of those options, I know how much time they take. I know when you run for Congress, how much time it takes. I know when you're doing those things that you give up a lot. Like your public officials, I'm telling you, it is costly, because it's not just like a 9 to 5 or even, a 7 to 7. It's all the time. When you see them out and about, and now I get a little bit of that because people recognize me. It's really funny when they recognize the sound of my voice and then they say hi. They're like, you sound so familiar. But nothing like what a senator, congressman, or something like that. And the cost on a lot of families, particularly young families, of running for office is real. And so, that's the answer to the question, Philip. Like, I appreciate you asking, but that's a challenge for a lot of young people. Is it's not designed so that folks have a lot of support. When you're running, a lot of times you're going alone. And I've told folks that have asked me to run, and people that have been asked to run, I tell them the same thing. You got to have a kitchen cabinet. You got to have people around you who tell you, we got your back. We're willing to do this. And when that happens and folks say, hey, you got to do this, then I'll do it. I think public service is an admirable profession, and we need more people in it that have character, have integrity, and will do the right thing even when it's hard. But the cost for that is quite high. And everyone needs to understand that. And so if you're thinking about it and you don't know, contact me. I'll do what I can to help support other candidates. There have been a number of other folks in Alabama and Tennessee who've run for office that I've helped either directly or behind the scenes, because I want quality people to run. All of us should want that. And where we can encourage and support others, that's good. And I'll tell you, a big part of me is somebody's going to have to drag me back into that, because I know my ego. I got a big one. I like to fight and brawl, and everything in that space pulls to your ego. It tells you you're special. People treat you different. And we need leaders who are able to check their own ego at the door and do what's hard. And when Matt says, I'm rolling up my sleeves for the people of Murfreesboro, I believe him. I think he'll do that. I think he'll leverage his relationships in the state to help the people in his community. And that's really important, but it's not about him. And that's the hardest thing in politics right now. At the top of the Republican ticket and the top of the Democratic ticket, we got folks who they are the biggest thing. And that's a big problem. We got to take a break. I'm Cameron Smith. You're listening to Super Talk 99.7.
Good afternoon. It is 2:31. I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. Partly sunny, 87 degrees on Music Row. A weather forecast is coming up. After 75 years, NATO is a stronger alliance than ever. Well, that's according to our president.
Since I took office, we've doubled the number of battle groups in NATO's eastern flank, and the United States has. Finland and Sweden have joined the alliance.
The president speaking before the NATO summit and at other campaign speeches during the day today. Moving down to South Texas, power still out to about 1 million customers in Southeast Texas after Beryl brought flooding, tornadoes, high winds. The hot weather this week could undoubtedly make conditions a lot worse for those without power. And that getting every customer back online is a top priority, according to the utility there. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, he's filling in for Governor Greg Abbott. Mr. Abbott is out of the country. Anyway, Patrick told reporters today that he's also not sure of the exact amount of people that have been confirmed dead as a result of the storm.
The numbers, we don't know exactly because they can change, but it's somewhere in the range of 9, 10, or 11 total that we're aware of.
One person did die from the heat in Matagorda County. That is the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
The Guaranteed Offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lock boxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer and start packing.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Matt Murphy for Members Nutrition. I want to tell you about the Members Nutrition difference, and I want to encourage you to go over to the Members Nutrition website. Number one, they believe at Members Nutrition that they can sell vitamins and supplements at a lower cost point, and they're doing it every single day at membersnutrition.com. Number two, they want to make these products right here in the United States of America, not from some overseas company, and they do that every single day. I encourage you to go to membersnutrition.com. You'll get 50% off your purchase price at checkout. You don't have to put in any codes. Just go to membersnutrition.com. Once again, membersnutrition.com.
Welcome back. The great Matt Murphy was just in here eating my pecans. He will be in for Brian, so get excited about that. And I'll tell you what, I really appreciate the encouragement of you folks on the Super Talk text line, just encouraging me generally. And those of you who said, hey, consider running for office. Hey, it's considered. And I got to focus on my boys because that matters to me a lot. And like some of y'all, I'm tired of the political class. I think it's ridiculous. I think they may say, look over there, shiny thing. And right here, we have challenges. We have things we need to address. We need to have things we need to go after. And, you know, I tell the truth. It makes people mad. For example, we'll start right now. The 2024 Republican Party platform looks like an angry email from my grandfather. It's in all caps, and it just says stuff. It's like, and I did this earlier, and I'm going to turn it into a column so you can read it over at the Tennessean. But it's like somebody was like late for turning in their term paper, and they just said, what am I going to do? Oh, we should just, how about this? This sounds good, cool. And now they went to like ChatGPT and said, hey, ChatGPT, write a Republican Party platform in 2024. Go. And then they just stuck it in a document and said, MAGA. Okay. We were better off when it was just, we'll do whatever Trump wants to do. I mean, truly. And I criticize that because I thought that the Republican Party could put together something that was coherent and comprehensive, which incidentally, the much maligned, what's it called? The Project 2025, the Mandate for Leadership from the Heritage Foundation. That's 922 pages long. It is very thorough, very well researched, tons of footnotes. The Republican Party platform is, I'm looking at it, 16 pages long. It's a bunch of declarative sentences, and in the middle are 20 promises. And they are very, very interesting. So I see you, Rishi, and I see you, Larry. I'm going to try to get to you in a minute, but I want to make sure that I get through these promises. These are the promises, and some of them make sense. Seal the border and stop the migrant invasion. Cool. Congress has been categorically unable to do that for decades, so I'm glad that you say that, but cool. Carry out the largest deportation operation in American history. Also, it's a declaration. It sounds good. If you looked at the Heritage document, they talk about creating visa sanctions and pushing back on countries that won't accept deportations. That's a little more specific, but okay. End inflation and make America affordable again. Well, why are we waiting? We should do that now. Oh, did you know that in federal spending is a huge part of why we had inflation in the first place, and Republicans hadn't been able to rein that in? I mean, neither have Democrats, but again, these are things, they're just a bunch of statements. Make America the dominant energy producer in the world, by far. Stop outsourcing and turn the United States into a manufacturing superpower. It already is, by the way. Like, we're really good at manufacturing. Large tax cuts for workers.
I'm sorry. I keep waiting for you to read, make the American economy the biggest in the world.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting at, Bell, is it's some of the things are really, really tiny and some are it's all caps, by the way, which is why it reminds me of the letter from my grandparents.
Guys, the economy is already the biggest in the world.
Right. It's just facts, Bell. Stop that with the knowing of things. It's number 6. These are the promises. Large tax cuts for workers. Cool. And no tax on tips. Well, incidentally, that's terrible tax policy because you're favoring some workers over other workers. You're saying if you get a tip, it's not taxed, but if you get a salary, it is taxed. Well, no. That's just a bad tax policy, like on its face, even for conservatives. And it just reflects, here's my favorite, number 8. Prevent World War III. Okay, I'm with you on that. Restore peace in Europe and in the Middle East. Peace in the Middle East, Bell.
No, I can't have any of this.
And
what are you talking about?
It gets better. And build a great Iron Dome missile defense shield over our entire country. all made in America. I'm not kidding. That's in there. It's like my boys came up. Guys, dude, wouldn't it be cool if we could shoot down all the missiles from Canada?
We're really going back to Star Wars?
Yes.
Are we?
But it's not Star Wars. It's Iron Dome.
Do you know why that the Israelis can have an Iron Dome? Because they're so tiny in landmass. There is no way. You could do an Iron Dome over D.C.,
right?
But that would be about it.
But this is rational thought, and trust me, there's not enough voters that really want to protect D.C. They'd be fine with it.
That's a good point.
Don't bomb me, bomb DC instead. But yeah, like this is just a practical, basic thing. So Israel is a nation that is in a region with people that hate it, that's constantly bombed, and it is, as you point out, a very relatively small landmass. And the Republican Party platform says that we need a great Iron Dome missile defense shield over our entire country.
How many trillions is that going to cost?
Right. This is...
Hey, anything in there about paying down the debt?
Keep the dollar as the world's reserve currency. No, in fact, it's the opposite of that, Bill. Okay. It's number 14, fight for and protect Social Security and Medicare with no cuts, including no changes to the retirement age. Dude,
the thing is between those two programs, there's somewhere between 100 and 200 trillion in unfunded liabilities they have coming up over the next, I think, 50 years.
Yep.
One, you don't tax your way out of that.
Right.
And two, those programs are going to be cut. Mm-hmm. It's a matter of when and how much longer both of these parties can stop, how long it is till they stop lying about that and admit it.
Yeah, and this to me is, and I get it. I'm calling out this Republican Party platform document for a reason, because I think if we're looking at Joe Biden and the fact that he is lost and Democrats are in chaos, and then we put something out that looks like a kid who didn't do their homework. This is not polished. This is not sharp. It does not present well. Like somebody in Republican universe should be like, we should really think through this. We should really do our homework. If we're going to put out something like this, maybe we shouldn't put out anything at all. And I actually agree with that. And Bell's making rational points about Social Security and Medicare. And I know nobody wants to hear that, particularly older voters who vote. But the truth hurts is that you've run basically a Ponzi scheme for a really long time, where you've just had the next generation paying for the prior generation, and eventually you get to a point where you can't do that anymore without changing the program. And so
Bernie Madoff went to jail and died in prison for running a Ponzi scheme. The government gets votes instead.
And so I know what happened is the Republican Party Platform Committee said, you know what, Democrats are attacking us on the issue, which they have for every cycle, right? Because when Paul Ryan and other folks came up with some actual solutions, they were like, they want to cut it. They want to throw you out in the street, Grandma. That was their campaign slogan. So now, number 14 in these promises is literally from the Democrats. It's a Democrat position. Has been, in spite of the known financial realities facing these important government programs, we will stick our head in the sand and make no changes. And then Republicans are like, exactly.
And once again, this platform shows how much commitment that the Republicans have to eliminating or getting the federal debt under control.
Exactly.
The Republicans, so everybody knows this, it's a fact, it's provable. The Republicans have never sliced a single red cent off of our federal debt.
Yeah.
Ever.
There's a couple more I want to get to in this list. Keep men out of women's sports. That's number 17. Sure, I agree with that. I think that, we have to address that issue. So good. That's good. Tell me what that looks like, how the federal government's going to do something, and what the game plan is there. The one that's going to have liberals, I can't imagine this goes well, is deport pro-Hamas radicals and make our college campuses safe and patriotic again. That's what it says. Don't kill the messenger. Deport pro-Hamas radicals. So, you're going to deport people who are on college campuses who are students acting like idiots. We're going to deport them for their support of a terrorist organization. Okay, I think some people could get behind that. But we're going to
so you deport the people that are on our college campuses that are here from another country. But if somebody
No, it didn't say that.
Well, but that's the implication if you're deporting somebody. But the people that are born in this country and on the college campuses, they're pro-Hamas. They're just fine. We'll let them keep protesting.
Right. I don't think that this is an illegal immigrant problem on the college campuses. I think it's a liberal nonsense problem.
Yes.
And so, but they're going to make campuses safe and patriotic again. I'll be clear. There's been a lot of college campuses that I would say haven't been patriotic in quite some time. And so I don't know what that means. How do you make the college campus patriotic? It seems bizarre.
You have to salute the flag as soon as you get out of your car to go to class.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. In 20, unite our country by bringing it to new and record levels of success. Okay. Everybody loves a winner, but
what's the definition of success in this case?
Right. This reads like something that came out of North Korea. Like the grand leader says, you will all unite around historic and wonderful levels of success. And I think we've got to criticize this and say, come on, folks. If you're party leaders and you're doing this and you're not doing your homework, it looks shoddy.
It's platitudes over policy is what it is.
Yes. And if you want to know, we got to take a break, but if you want to know why Democrats are going after Heritage Foundation's Project 2025 as opposed to this thing, because one of these two groups did their homework, and it's not the Republican Party. We got to take a break. I'm Cameron Smith. You're listening to Super Talk 99.7. I've got a crying Matt Murphy in studio, but we can't have this show shut down without Larry. Larry, what you got? We're shutting it down, so we gotta hear from you, Larry. What do you
Larry. Well, first of all, I can't wait for Cam to bring his kids out here to learn how to drive the John Deere.
We're gonna do it. That's a nice John Deere you got.
I think, sir. And Cam, we would love to have you in office, but your job with your 4 boys is far more important.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, Larry.
I would run for office because, I got a huge ego. I'm special. I was, short bus special.
Not supposed to laugh at that. Larry, you are special. That is true.
Well, thank you, sir.
Well,
but, I can't wait for the boys to come out. And look, I want to know what you think. Do you think Joe's going to stay in the race or no?
No, I don't. We're running out of time, Larry, and I'll text you on the other side.
Dadgummit, we disagree on that.
We can disagree. We can argue.
I mean, I get it, but we don't have time to disagree.
I know. We're running out of time.
Do you think he's gone?
I think that Democrats are looking at a landslide Trump victory. Not just Trump, Republicans, House, Senate, everything.
Yeah, but they'll look at that if Joe has to go willingly in your analysis, doesn't he?
I don't actually think he does. I think.
Okay, stick around. Can you stick around?
I'll stick around for a minute.
Okay. I have a very special guest coming up on
very special guest
with no Brian Wilson.
On the drive with Brian Wilson, you can hear Matt Murphy and Cameron Smith argue about things.
No, I want to hear your analysis because I've switched gears on this like 4 different times, so I'm curious.
Okay, we'll have that conversation.
Here we go.
On the other side, I'm Cameron Smith. You're listening to the Matt Murphy Show. Now you're going to listen to Matt Murphy on the Brian Wilson Show on Super Talk 99.7.